make some statements, part of the struggle and the work that's continuing on, and why we're here at Alcatraz Island. And we'll have some statements, and then we'll conclude and continue on with our prayer for the day. Some of the people we've asked to be here with us: Clyde Belcourt from the American Indian Movement, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Yvonne Swan, who came in from Washington State. Colville, she'll be also making a brief statement. Morningstar Golly, the organizer, coordinator for the Alcatraz event, speaking on behalf of the International Indian Treaty Council. We also have Samson Wolf, who's also want to make a statement in regards to an update on Leonard Peltier. And so we'll have a couple more speakers as we move forward here, and so as we open up this press conference. If there's a drum, maybe we like to have a drum group. There's some singers come forward and open it up for us in that way. Again, we're only going to be here for a few minutes, so we try to keep our comments and statements brief. Maybe there might be some questions that might want to ask. We'll try to make that available as well. So first of all, again, I want to thank you for coming and being a part of this prayer and gathering today. Our first speaker, I'd like to ask Clyde to go ahead and read his statement and what he has to say.
Ho, bonjour. Anigana Wewe dan Indigenous, o Sishak Dodain, Anishinaabe, o Gitchida, Three Fire Society, Gathering of the Sacred Pike, Sundance, American Indian Movement. My spirit name, or my God-given name, is Nigana Wewedan. And I didn't get that at birth, as I should have. When I was born 75 years ago, we were forbidden to have Indian names, forbidden to speak our language, forbidden to practice our traditional and spiritual way of life. Where I come from, on the Whiter Chippewa Reservation in northern Minnesota, we were forced into a Catholic boarding school. And when I talk about this history and I talk about this background, I'm talking about every Indian in America. Every Indian in America, because our mothers and our fathers, our grandfathers and grandmothers went through that same process. To get rid of our language, get rid of our culture, cut our hair, never to dance again, never to go to ceremony, no sweat lodges, no sun dances. Everything came to a standstill. When the American Indian Movement was born in July of 1968, absolutely nothing was being taught about Indian people, their traditional way of life, the contributions that they made to modern day society. Even the very Constitution that the United States government lives under today was copied from the great Iroquois Confederacy. How come they don't teach our children that in the school? In Mexico, in Teotihuacan, which I visited 3 years ago, I looked at skulls that had 2 or 3 pinholes in it, 10, 15, 20 years apart. I found out that the Indian people there, the traditional people before the Spaniards came there, were practicing brain surgery while the Spaniards were still living in caves over in Europe. How come they don't teach us that? They had running water that came into Teotihuacan where 280,000 people lived. 280,000 people had three floors of apartment buildings. And the water came out of the mountains and flowed through the city, viaduct into every home. Maybe once or twice a week, the farmers would come in, the wastewater that went back out to the channel to leave the city. They would separate the feces and go out and use it to fertilize their gardens. I found out they had clean spring running water while the Spaniards were still living in caves over in Europe. I was invited to go into the Sun Temple. They don't call them pyramids down there. It's a temple, a sacred place. 3 times larger. 3 times larger than any pyramid they find along the Nile, built hundreds of years before the Roman Empire. How come they don't teach our children that? This is why the American Indian movement was born. Because absolutely nothing was being taught about our beautiful culture. Medical science and doctors have said they haven't come up with a medicine yet that Indian people didn't have, use, and practice. That's reality. 80% of all the food that's consumed in the world today comes from Indian people. Nothing was taught in the public schools. So not only do our own young Indian people know anything about their culture, the white man himself knows nothing about it. They're totally scholastically retarded when it comes to Indian people and our traditional way of life and the contribution we made to modern day society. And when this movement formed in July of 1968, people were telling us that we had to forget about the past, forget about the past and think about the future. And what the American Indian movement was saying, if we forget about our past, we'll never have a future. Our past is our future. Our past is our language. Our past is our culture. Our past is our traditional way of life. A culture and a people that they couldn't find any prisons, jails, guillotines, electric chairs. We need none of that. Every language that's spoken here in the Americas today, there's no way of saying mother this and mother that. No cuss words or nothing. And that's what this movement wanted to recapture. We wanted to bring it back. Today when people think about the American Indian movement, they think we're supposed to be standing on the hill with an AK in our hand. That's what they look at the movement, or demonstrating outside of Ball Diamond. The organization that helped sponsor this right here today, the organization headquartered right here in San Francisco, the International Indian Treaty Council, was founded by the American Indian movement. Was founded by the American Indian movement. When we knew that the courts during the Wounded Knee trials that lasted 9.5 months, and we knew the courts wouldn't allow us to use our treaties as our defense, why we went to Wounded Knee, to liberate it, to free our people, to stop the murders and the rapes and the firebombing and all the bad things that were happening to the Lakota Nation in Pine Ridge. When we knew that they weren't going to abide by those treaties that said if there's a white man or non-Indian among you that violates crimes against the Indian people, you have the right to defend them. You have the right to arrest them. And they're the ones that should be booted off the reservation. When they wouldn't listen to that, in 9.5 months, we decided to form the International Indian Treaty Council, the American Indian Movement. Not the National Congress American Indian, not the National Tribal Chairmen's Association, not the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the American Indian Movement.
Right.
The American Indian Movement formed the International Treaty Council. And today, I couldn't believe my ears. That's all I asked for, is a few minutes of time to speak about this beautiful movement that brought hundreds of thousands of people all over the world to gatherings like this. I want to talk about this sacred circle of life that gathered here today. Whether you like it or whether you believe it or not, there was an attempt to stop me from doing that. I've never been so disrespected in my life by an organization that was formed by the American Indian Movement. Think about that. Think about that. They're trying to rewrite, revisionist they call it. Revisionist. They want to change the movement itself and try to claim credit for that. That's all I wanted to talk about was this sacred hoop of life that withered and died in the blood-soaked cornfields and snowfields surrounding Wounded Knee in 1973. I wanted to talk about the massacre that took place in 1890 and how this little boy rode up on a hill and saw the Hotchkiss guns shooting down the women and children, cutting their bellies open in 1890, waving little babies, unborn babies up in the air. That's the real history, that's the real story of what happened at Wounded Knee. And this little boy that I talked about up there, 12 years old, rode up on that. He heard the Hotchkiss guns going in the distance. And he rode up on that. The first thing he wanted to do, because at that time in our history, when a little boy was 11, 12 years old, they were already a warrior. They were already willing to give their life for what they believed in. And Black Elk wanted to ride right down, and the Creator stopped him. He said, no, Black Elk. Not knowing, Black Elk didn't know he was going to be a medicine man. He didn't know he was going to be a spiritual leader, that he was selected for that. And the Creator told him about the suffering that was going to go on for his people, and that he was going to be needed now more than ever. So Black Elk didn't go. He started to heal and take care of his people. He started boarding schools, the prisons, the jail, the alcohol, smallpox, all these things come about his people. In 1935, he went right up in that same hill, overlooking Wounded Knee to seek a vision. And on the third night, they say the Creator came to him. And Black Elk cried out. 1935, an old man, believing that he was becoming feeble, couldn't remember things anymore. He thought he was a total failure. Thought he was a total failure. He told the Creator that he had failed the people. And the Creator said, oh no, Black Elk, you didn't fail. You didn't fail, Black Elk. It wasn't for people like you and hundreds and thousands of them in every tribe across this nation that took care of our language, took care of our culture, hid our sundances, our peyotes, all the things that went on. We wouldn't be here today. And then Black Elk said, Grandfather, the sacred hoop of life was broken in 1890 at Christmas time. Black Elk told him that the sacred tree of life was dead. And the Creator says, oh no, Black Elk. Oh no. Maybe that hoop, maybe that circle was scattered in the blood-soaked valley there in Wounded Knee. But he said the roots of the tree are still alive. The roots of the tree are still alive, and there would be people coming back right there to that area, and they would nourish the roots of that tree, and it would grow again. And he said the sacred hoop that withered and died in 1890 in the blood-soaked hills of Wounded Knee would be mended again. That's all I wanted to say today. That's all I want to do is let people know that that sacred hoop that Black Elk talked about was right before your very eyes today. He didn't say it was just going to be Lakota. He didn't say it was going to be Chippewa. He didn't say it was going to be Apache. He didn't say it was going to be people from all over Central and South America. The Mexica. The Mexica inspired me today to get up and speak. And yet they try to unplug me. Try to stop the very person that found it, helped found the International Treaty Council. Try to stop that. And that's what we see and what we witnessed today, the sacred hoop of life that crowned all humankind, not just Indian people, all humankind, and they were there today. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the American Indian movement. We wanted to create programs that take care of the health of our people. We wanted to create schools that would teach Indian culture, Indian tradition, Indian languages. People laughed at us, said, oh no, you got to forget about the future. Now the past, you got to think about the future. And I was telling them, if we forget about our past, we'll never have a future. Those same people that were telling me that all have colleges now, all have schools. The emergence of our language is coming back. These same people that have big casinos in their backyards, they were the ones that told us that we had to forget about the past and think about the future. We were using the word sovereignty when most of them couldn't even spell it, couldn't even spell the word. And today we have all those things. The emergence of the movement took place here today. Let me just give you a little example of what we have done. First of all, we formed the International Treaty Council. 96 tribes showed up in 1974. We went to United. We're the first Indian organization in the history, first tribe in the history to give given non-government organizational status within the United Nations. And it wasn't for us here. It was for people all the way across Mexico, Central America, South America, and all over the world that we were thinking about. 96 tribes showed up. 96 tribal leaders showed up. Traditionally, not tribal chairmen, not BIA, traditional people. We weren't thinking about ourselves. We were thinking about indigenous people all over the world that are suffering that fate, losing their language, their culture, and their traditional way of life. Then we started working on a campaign. Took us 30 years. 30 years. In 2007, the United Nations in New York City passed what is called a Declaration of Rights for the Indigenous People of the World. The only one that hasn't signed that today is the United States of America. So when you put those calls into the Obama administration, remind them of that and demand that. And we know why they won't sign that. We know why they won't sign that declaration, because it opens the door for all of our treaties to the World Court, for the reparations and the multi-billion dollars in resources that they stole from us and still stealing today. Opens the door for the protection of sacred sites and burial grounds, all the issues that were discussed today. It opens the door for that, so we can go on an international level to recoup that. And guess what? It's all been prophesied. It was all prophesied that that would happen. In 1972, we were walking across America called the Trail of Broken Treaties. Not too many people paid attention to us. We're coming outside of Muskogee, Oklahoma. There's an old man, he was cleaning out his ditch. His name was Philip Deere. Became our spiritual leader, our prophet in the movement. When they moved, the Jackson administration moved the civilized nations, they call them, out of the eastern coastboard into Oklahoma. Philip Deere's band was one of them. He carried that band, he carried that wood that lighted fire all the way across through tornadoes and rainstorms, never let the spark go out. And when they got to Oklahoma, he built this fire. Because of the church and because of the government, he had to make a sweat lodge under the ground. You would never see it if you go to his home. You see corn growing there. When I went to a sweat, they had to pull the canvas up and had to crawl underground and hide it from the church and hide it from the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And the prophecy, the Spirit told the Muskogee Creek that 5 generations from the removal to Oklahoma, he told them about all the suffering they would go through. Relocation, the boarding school system, how the churches would take control of their lives. They'd lose their language and culture and ceremony. Told them all those things. Everything. One day he was cleaning out his ditch, picking up rocks, because every spring when the waters would come, they would fill up his culvert and his land would be flooded. So he had to unplug the culverts and all of a sudden, he heard a drum. Oh, it can't be, he said. Then nobody has a drum anymore. There's no ceremonies anymore. There's no powwows. There's nothing going on. So he went back to work. And he started thinking about his prophecy. He said he would hear a drum during that 5th generation, and they would come dressed in red. That's what he was told. He could hear that drum again. He could hear that drum again. And he went out and looked all the way down the road like that. He saw some dust coming in the distance. And as it got closer, everybody was dressed in red. Little red berets, yeah? Little red shirts, red jackets, little braids about that long. It was the American Indian movement and the Trail of Broken Treaties. He said, I threw my wheelbarrow and I threw my shovel and my pick in the ditch that day, and it's still there. He joined the American Indian movement because that's what the prophecy said. The prophecy predicted, prophesied the very movement that we belong to today. And this is why we're here. This is why we come by the hundreds from all over the Americas. We have every right to celebrate Thanksgiving. But to that immigrant, the only immigrants that I ever heard of and know of was ones that come across that ocean. The rest of us are all brothers and sisters. We're all families. Every one of us here. We talked about those things and what would happen to us. To them, it's thanks-taking. They've taken everything they got. What they didn't give to them, they stole it from us. That's what they're celebrating. They wait all year. There's a time in our history, my relatives, everything that we did, everything. Plant a garden, tap the maple sugar, harvest the wild rice, go hunt the buffalo, the fish. You had to dance. You had to sing. You had to pray. You had to ask the Creator to guide you. And guess what they did when they came home? They distributed all that food to the elders and those that couldn't hunt anymore. I remember that yet as a little boy. And when we went home, we could hear the drums. Hidden would come out at that time, and guess what we had? We didn't wait for Abraham Lincoln to declare the last Thursday month Thanksgiving. We had Thanksgiving every single day of the week.
Yeah.
And my brothers, my sisters, my relatives, that's the way it is now, and that's the way it's going to be forever. The American Indian Movement created the International Indian Treaty Council. And guess what that does? That brings over 47 million of us. 47 million of us, indigenous people all over the world, are together today. They're scared of that. We're not minorities. Huh? We're sovereign nations. And you can't be a sovereign nation unless you practice that sovereignty every day of the week. And that's what this movement is all about. We created our own legal rights center. One of the chief investigators is right here in this audience. Lonnie, where are you? One of our chief investigators. We can't even take a case unless she does the investigation. And the same with the blacks and the Hispanics and the Asians. We represented over 96,000 cases since the formation of the Legal Rights Center. We created the Indian Child Welfare Act, saving hundreds and thousands of children from being separated from their mother, their family, their community, and their nation. Yeah. The American Indian Movement did that. That's the international, that's the Legal Rights Center in Minneapolis. Heart of the Earth Survival School, the first alternative education program in the nation. 86% of our children that enter the 9th grade don't graduate. But in our school, out of all the graduate seniors in the city of Minneapolis, 96% of them come from the Heart of the Earth School. Because they're learning their culture and their tradition, the powwows and drums and all the beautiful things. That's what makes our kids want to go to school again. And now the same tribes that told us that we forget about that, push us on the back burner, they're all doing the same thing today. We operate 2 clinics, 2 urban Indian clinics run by the American Indian movement. Treat over close to 30-some thousand people a year, Native people. We have the top job training program in the nation called American Indian OIC. Someday, come and visit us. You come through Minneapolis, stop there for a day, and I'll take you around and show you all of this, every bit of it. You can go on our website, aimovement.org, and you'll see everything that I'm talking about here today. In our job training program, we've trained over 50,000 people in the last 30 years. And we've taken out of that 40-some thousand right out from welfare rolls and put them on payroll. That's what the American Indian movement is all about. That's what we want to talk about. That's what we want to do here today. And we dealt with the mascots issues too. Because that's all they can think about when they think about Indians. The Atlanta Braves and the Cleveland Indians and the Kansas City Chiefs putting paint on their face. Cleveland Indians got teeth from one ear to the other. Big buck's teeth. Painted red, faces painted red with a chicken feather in their hair. That's the way America looks at us today. But we're going to change all that. We have changed it. We're going to continue to change it. We're going to let them know who we really are.
That's right.
And I believe myself personally that we might be their survival even. Because they're turning to us. They're tired of the churches and all the lies and heard. They're tired to hear about the Catholic priests, which isn't something new, isn't anything new to Indian people. They're turning away from us. They want to get back to reality. And that's what this American Indian movement is all about. My relatives, we're at war. We're still at war. We're still battling, man. Stop them from going into our sacred sites and burial grounds. Raving our graveyards. They're still doing it. We're still doing it. And the American Indian movement is the only organization that'll stand up against that. So if you're not part of that movement, by the power, enlisted in me as founder and national chairman, national director of the American Indian movement, I draft every single one of you today.
Yeah.
Every single one of
thank
you,
you.
every single one of you that were in that circle today is a member of the American Indian movement, whether you like it or not. Whether you like it or not. And that power invested in me, I draft you today.
Thank you.
If you have any questions, I'd feel free to ask them. I got a limited amount of press packets here, but those of you who want to take the story back, the true story, to your community newspapers or to your community, I'll furnish you one of these to do that. Chronology, history of the movement from day one that was prophesied. Black Elk talked about that. Black Elk talked about that. And who nourished that roots of the tree? It was the American Indian movement. I carried a Catholic priest on the only Sundance left in America on Pine Ridge, where at noon they would take out the Sundance drum and bring in the powwow drum. Merry-go-rounds and Ferris wheels all the way around the harbor. Sundance was walking around with a snow cone, eating hamburgers. And we put a stop to that. The government put the church in total control of us. We couldn't have a peyote meeting without sponsorship by the church. And me and Layman Brightman, right over here in Berkeley, carried that Catholic priest out of that arbor. And today we have hundreds, thousands of Sundance all the way from the Northwest Territory to the southern tip of South America. Our people are going back to their traditional way of life. That's what this movement is all about. We want your involvement, we want your support. We're trying to free Leonard. We're also trying to get this government that has oppressed us for over 500 years to adopt the International Declaration of Rights for international community, international people. We need your help. In the old days, we had a tremendous lobbying effort. I would ask you, David, go out and call 10 people and tell them that we need this legislation, we need this corrected. And then those 10 people would call, each one of them would call 10 more people, and those 10 people would call 10 more, 10 more. Thousands of people in 2 days would respond to that telephone tree to make things in the same process. You educate people about our struggle and where we're at today. So I want to say just that much. I'm 74 years old, but I haven't slowed down yet. Got a cane now, I need another leg, you know. Sometimes it's my work truck. That's why I got that hook in there. If they try to run away, sometimes I gotta grab them by the neck, pull them back. So if you have any questions, feel free to answer. If you work with a community newspaper, radio station, community radio station, television program, I'll give you a packet. If you're interested in creating a chapter in your community, I'll give you a packet that'll show you exactly how to do that and the kind of support you will get from this movement to make change in your community where you're from. So I wanted to say that much at this time, and I know my sister here, Yvonne, she has a few things to say, so I'm going to turn this mic over to her. Yvonne Monroe.
Thank you, Clyde. Hello, my relatives. My grandfather named me Zipat. The priest made my mother give me a name that was appropriate for the Catholic Church, so she picked Yvonne. And my father's name is Swan. He was from the Dakotas. They were landless Indians, and they were adopted into the Coeur d'Alene tribe. So back then they knew how to treat each other and take care of each other, bring each other into their homes and feed them and shelter them. In those days it was really rough, and today hardly not very much has changed. It's just different people. The oppressors are different. They have different weapons. It started out, I think, with the sword against us, and then it went to the cross, and then now the needle to take us away so they can have this earth and the land and resources. And I really feel empowered by the support throughout the years, ever since I became acquainted with the people in the American Indian movement. I was at the first International Indian Treaty Council, the founding of the International Indian Treaty Council in 1974, where I met Clyde and Vernon and Dennis and all of the other people in the American Indian movement. My little daughter was only 1 month old. So I never forgot that. I never forgot the caring. They were really, truly caretakers. And as Clyde was talking about a vision, I remembered a vision that I had several years ago about my role in life. It's like I saw this hill, and our people, old ladies and old men and crippled men and women and children, and they were climbing up this hill. And we were standing arm like this. Put your arm out like that. Up that hill, and we were helping them get up that hill. So that's what it's all about, is to help each other on this earth. The Creator set before us a mandate that we take care of this earth and we take care of each other and we help each other. And today, that I've witnessed that happening today, where even the people that were taking us over to the island and helping the security people, a lot of them were very nice to us, very respectful, so it's a very warm feeling. And I have to credit the American Indian Movement and the International Indian Treaty Council for engendering all this support. Got the word out, and that's why you're here. So this is really good. It's a fulfillment, like Clyde said, of a prophecy. there's several prophecies. I try to remember them as they were told to me. One really good one is that one day soon the Indian people will be on top. And my auntie just told me that. She's about 80 years old, the last of my mom's generation. And she said it's happening now. It's kind of difficult to see that. It's kind of difficult because we are still going and visiting our family in prison. We still have political prisoners inside and outside the walls. We still have people who are suffering from diabetes and children, or suicides are awful. All of that stuff, but we can't stop. We can't, like Jimbo said last night, he was told by an elder not to stop. Rest, but don't stop. Keep going, keep sharing the information. That way, everybody will get up that hill. Everybody will make it. We'll be a strong people. So, I just wanted to share that with you, and thank you all very, very much.
I've been passing out. I'm going to see if we got any more in the car, but this is our latest project. We have on the University of Minnesota campus over the past 34 years, we ended up owning about 3/4 of a block. And on that block sits a mansion, a very famous mansion. And we sold all the property, but we couldn't remove this mansion. Offered it for sale for $1. Anybody would come and tear it down and take it away. There was no comers. So we decided to show our appreciation and support for our young people that went through our educational system, that we'd build this into an interpretive center. For the sale of the land, we were able to put $1.7 million in the bank. And we're looking to raise another additional $7 million to build one of the only interpretive centers in America. Not a museum. I have to find myself now, because anybody use the word museum, they have to pay $100 at a board meeting. It's an interpretive center to tell the truth, the creation story of the Anishinaabe people, those prominent in our area with Chippewa, Dakota, and Winnebago. That their creation story would be told in the center, and the history of that people from when the missionaries came, forced into the boarding schools, cutting their hair. And the one I saw up in Mount Pleasant in Michigan, all of a sudden here comes the American Indian movement, Wounded Knee. And all those people stand up. They march uptown because they don't have the money to get to Wounded Knee. And they built a beautiful interpretive center. They got a beautiful casino in their backyard. They have their own hospital, their own fire department, their own school, their own college. And we're building an interpretive center. And it shows how the end result was, of course, all these children that were in the boarding school are now sitting around an old grandma. And she's putting together a basket and she's teaching them the only Anishinaabe language. And that's the way it ends. But it's one room that's totally dedicated to the American Indian movement. And they say it wasn't for the American Indian movement, they wouldn't have a thing today. They wouldn't have a casino, they wouldn't have a hospital, they wouldn't have a fire department, wouldn't have nothing. If it wasn't for the takeover of the BIA for Wounded Knee in 1973 that inspired them and gave them the power to move forward. So that's what this interpretive center is going to be all about. We already did $120,000 in architectural work on it to put it together. And we'll be putting this on the webs all over the Americas. We'll be asking people that got film, that got literature pertaining to the American Indian movement, the Trail of Broken Treaties, the Longest Walk, the freedom of religion, the sacred sites issues, Alcatraz, everything that has happened, we're asking them to send us that material. And that material will be cataloged and it'll be available, not just for our children and our students, but for the non-Indian. People ask us hundreds of questions a year. Once they walk through that front door and out the back door, maybe 3 hours later, or 2 days, or a week, they'll never ask another question about Indian people. They'll know everything about us. So this is our latest project. It's going to archive the whole American Indian movement from day one. to where we're at today. This is a very, very important period in our lifetime. Something that I thought I would never see, the end result. And I've lived long enough to see that circle out there today. One of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in my life. Something that you dream about, but never would believe that something like that would happen. Right before our very eyes, every single one of you seen that today. Everyone is coming together as one family. So I wanted to say that much. I think I got a few of these around it. You know, you want to get a copy of it.
Okay. Thank you, Clyde. Thank you, Yvonne. Just want to, again, thank Yvonne for giving us those strong words as well. Yvonne is kind of humble about her work and what she's been doing, and as a warrior woman. Some of you that don't know her, Yvonne was convicted in 1973 by an all-white jury of second-degree murder for killing a child molester and first-degree assault for wounding his companion. Yvonne was released in 1979 after years of appeals. And it's good that Yvonne is continuing to walk that path. And I just wanted to add that, you know, and what she's done. Our next speaker, and very important why we're here today, is, and we heard briefly, is for our political prisoners, for our brothers that are serving time, brothers and sisters. And one of the organizers in the Northern California here for the Leonard Peltier Committee, who's keeping it going, the awareness and the work here, would like to make a statement, is Samson Wolf.
Thank you, Jimbo. Thank you for this opportunity. In my language, I would say Hasaga Damasi Mado, which is I thank you, Creator. And I'm from the Muskogee Nation, from the Wind Clan. You know, and I'm very thankful today for the American Indian movement, as I'm actually a success story. All the efforts that the American Indian movement had brought funding for send some of the poor students to go to school and get an education. And that's where the Indian Center came to my parents and said, we have money now that we can send some poor kids to school. And they sent me to school. So now I'm an engineer, mechanical engineer. I have a good job, thankfully, to the American Indian movement. And, you know, I was going out to a powwow and I saw these people there, Leonard Peltier, still locked up. And I said, he's still locked up, you know, is there anything I can do to help? You know, I feel like I want to give something back to the American Indian movement because they helped me. I feel they really helped me get my education, you know. So I want to help Leonard. And, you know, I never thought in this time that, you know, I always, for the last 10 years, I've been working at powwows and going to events and raised consciousness about Leonard's plight, you know. He's wrongfully accused of killing 2 FBI agents that were on the reservation in Pine Ridge back there in 1975. You know, but those FBI's, they killed an Indian guy too, you know, and none of those FBI's have ever been charged with murder. And that's not just the first murder that they've done. They've done a lot of murdering of a lot of Indian people, a lot of non-Indian people even, you know, with Waco, Texas and Ruby Ridge, killing innocent American citizens. That's costing millions of dollars in legal fees. And Leonard has been in prison now for over 30 years. He's 66 years old now. And all this time I've been working towards his freedom. And I never did cross my mind that he would die, you know. And the possibility right now is Leonard has some very urgent medical attention that he needs, you know. It's possible that he may have prostate cancer, you know, and it's taken the prison system a long time to get him any help. When he had a problem with his jaw, we had to have millions of people send letters to the White House and to the Bureau of Prisons to get him some help, you know. So it's always a struggle trying to help Leonard. And I would like to urge people, if they can go to the website of whoisleonardpeltier.info. There's address on there to send a letter. All we're asking is that you send a letter to the White House urging them to release Leonard Peltier. Grant Leonard Peltier executive clemency. You know, he's been wrongfully accused. The other 3 people that they were looking for when the shootout happened in the 75 was Dino Butler and Rob Robidoux. And, you know, they caught Dino Butler and Rob Robidoux. and they were tried and they were acquitted on grounds self-defense. You know, so if Leonard would have been with Dino and Rob, he'd be a free man today. You know, and so the jury said, you know, people have a right to defend themselves. So that's all they were doing, is defending themselves. You know, the FBI didn't come and knock on the door and say, I'm here for this reason. They come in with snipers and remote-controlled robots with shotguns mounted on them. They don't know how to come and knock on a door and say, this is why I'm here. You know, so you don't even know who these people are. Anyway, we want you to, we're really concerned with Leonard's health right now, and we're asking everybody to please help, you know, any way that you can. Get on the computer. It doesn't take that long to write a letter, and the White House receives all this information. You know, we had a big push there recently for Leonard's parole. You know, his next parole hearing is not until 2025, if he can even live to be that long. You know, so of course, you know, his parole was denied again. You know, so we're really heartbroken over that. You know, we were heartbroken when Bill Clinton said he was going to grant him clemency, and then he didn't do it. They had 500 FBI agents protested at the White House to prevent this from happening, to prevent Clinton from releasing Leonard Peltier.
Going back up tonight,
so now with his failing health issues, we're trying to get him relocated closer to his reservation in Turtle Mountain, or another facility where it's not a hardship. You know, Leonard's family used to be able to come down and see him when he was in Leavenworth Federal Penitentiary in Kansas. And now they have so many prisons in America now that they lowered the security level of some of the older prisons. So when they lowered the security level of Leavenworth, they considered Leonard a high-risk security risk, so they moved him to Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Now it's a really big inconvenience for his family to come and see him. You know, they have to travel a long way. And it's very hard for Leonard. And my prayers, we have prayers for him all the time in the NEPI ceremonies we have, and we pray for him every day. You know, we want to see Leonard released. He does, a lot of people don't know, he does a huge amount of humanitarian work from his jail cell. You know, he's foster parent for some children in South America. He does food drives and clothing drives for Pine Ridge. You know, he's an author. He wrote a book called Prison Writings, My Life is My Sundance. You know, I'd encourage you to read that, then you can understand where he was from and why he felt motivated to help his people and join the American Indian movement. You know, everybody, they just want to have some rights and some respect like all Americans have. You know, so I just would like to urge you to please help Leonard Peltier. Contact the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee, and if you'd like to get involved, there's a lot of chapters at the AIM conference this week. There's some more people who committed themselves to start their own chapter to support for Leonard. And you can start your own chapter also, in wherever you want, wherever you're living at, and just contact whoisleonardpeltier.info. All the information's there. You can talk to me. I'm Samson Wolf. If you Google me, you'll find all my information. I'm also on the whoisleonardpeltier.info. And we would like you to please help Leonard, and just thank you for this time that I can speak on behalf of Leonard Peltier and say thank you from Leonard for listening to me.
Thank you, Samson. We had a couple more brief statement speakers, so just hold with us. And the reason for this press conference is to bring you up to date on meetings that are taking place, that have been taking place the last few days, and will resume tomorrow at the Baha'i. This is the 42nd anniversary of the American Indian Movement, and the American Indian Movement AIM West chapter here in the Bay Area is hosting that gathering, which started at the City College. So we had hoped that by having this press conference would bring us up to date to some of the issues that we were discussing, and a very important issue that's affecting a lot of our people across this country. And it's a very sad that some of our own Indian people have taken it upon themselves to create a bigger issue. And we talk about the disenrollment. And I don't know if some of you are aware, but you know, and since the casinos and some of the tribes have gotten a little bit more wealthier, some tribes have decided to go ahead and start disenrolling some of their tribal members. And here in California, there's a big case, there's a big issue of this going on. And we have a representative that came to our meetings, and she wants to, ask her to give us a brief update on that. I'd like to ask Jolene Peak to come forward and give us a little bit of information on where that's at. And also Tony to stand by and give us a quick update on where we're going to end up in the next day or so.
All right, thank you, Jim. My name is Jolene Crawford. I'm of the Pomo Robinson Rancheria and also the White Earth from Minnesota. And we have like over 3,000, thousands and thousands of Indians here in California that are being targeted on disenrollment, and most of it is focused on money. The casinos, like Jim said, you know, it's kind of surrounded by a lot of the casinos, and I'm one of those, and it's just at a point where they have the corruption, they have they have all these things that surround the disenrollment is just I'm sorry, I got lost here. But one of the things that I was talking to one of my cousins with this morning was that, you know, it's a type of genocide that we face, you know, and when we go to the BIA or we go to, you know, all these federal governments that are supposed to be there to help us, you know, they kind of just, you know, look the other way, you know, and to me, we were talking about it in about how you know, it's a genocide, you know, that's happening today with our people that has happened, you know, many years ago. Like where we come from, you know, we had a massacre over there, you know, at Clear Lake, the oldest lake in California, and they called it at first they called it a battle between the natives and, you know, in the army, and it was actually a massacre, you know, on our people. And so my great grandmother had survived the massacre, and we you know, we're descendants from that. But here we are, you know, me and my two other sisters, one of them is here today, you know, and we're lineal descendants from this tribe, but yet, you know, we're being disenrolled on the corruption, you know, for them to get more money, you know. And this is what we've been, you know, trying to focus on because you see it all around the, you know, the lake where we live. You know, there's you know, 200 here, 300 there, you know, being disenrolled. And this is one of the things that I've been talking with Antonio about, you know, was, you know, what can we do? You know, we got to step up. We got to, you know, talk about our own people that are being, you know, they're being assimilated, and they're knocking each other out. You know, they're knocking their own people out. You know, and this is what we have to focus on, because genocide is happening today still, you know. And I just wanted Doug to kind of talk about one of the stories about how that genocide happened, you know, back in 1850, and then compared to how it's going on today. So I was just gonna let Doug go ahead and say that.
Thank you, sister. Jolene is my cousin and blood relative. I brought this poster up here that we had. Trunat. This is of my great-grandmother, of our great-grandmother. She was 6 years old when she survived the massacre. 40 years before Wounded Knee was the Bloody Island massacre of our people at the Badon up at the island. It was the women and children that were there. It was for the killing of Stone and Kelsey, two white Mason men that were enslaving our people back in the 1840s. In 1849, they had taken 300 of our people over to the Sacramento areas up there to look for gold and stuff. And when he got malaria, he sold all his stuff that he had and came home and left our people there. He left the people that was from the tribes around the lake. Out of those people, 12 of them came back. The other brothers that were up there walking home, leaving the areas that they had to come from up in Sacramento, died along the river banks because they had Masons there digging for this gold, tearing our mother apart, taking her blood. The gold, our people, if you look at the California people, we do not wear gold. Gold is not a part. We do not have metal. We have the abalone shells, the things that Mother Earth had given to us and stuff. That was treacherous what they did to our people there. She was 6 years old. 6 years old when she survived this. We did this, a picture like this because this is how my mother and them told us what she did every day. That she stepped outside and prayed to Hanukkah. Well, Hanukkah, forgive them for what they've done to our people. And she prayed for that forgiveness. So, through AIM, they gave me the spirit as a 14-year-old boy. When the takeover was here, that I came out here. And I helped what I could as a young man. Now I'm that elder. And from the sunrise that we do here and stuff, and that they bestowed on me the honor of doing the prayer songs and stuff for them, that I realized I needed to go home and do the same for her and for the people that did not survive. I had that dream up there, and I saw the spirits that came across that lake. 117 miles is our baseline, our shoreline. From there I stood, and a little girl was standing next to me, and all the spirits came and asked, and I asked them why they were there, and they said, because we heard you was going to have a ceremony to let our spirits go home. I said, yes. So I told my brother Clayton Duncan, you go to Nika, Grandma's gravesite, and do what you want there. My calling has been to the island, to the rock, to where the people died. That's where I'm going. So every year since 2000, since the year 2000 when we started our first one, doing a sunrise ceremony there, May 15th, that we go up there, we had 10 people show up. Out of those 10 people, 4 of them were from our family. The other 6 were 2 families, one from a Catholic family and one from a Protestant family that came to ask for forgiveness for what their people did. And from that time, from that first time that we had those 10 people, and just like Brother Clyde said, you tell 10 people, and you tell 10 people, and on and on. This last year at Sunrise up there in Lake County at the marker at the island, we had 161 people. 161 people, just like we have over here. I feel so proud to be a part of this, just to be here. I haven't slept. That's my sacrifice. I haven't slept yet. I will not close my eyes until everything is done here. Then I can rest, like Brother said, but I will never stop fighting. We have the Lucy Moore Foundation established as a nonprofit to try to get that island back, the Badunapiki Island, to buy it back from some people. The government had taken it and established and given it to some white people for $25. Now those same people are asking us for $2.5 billion for that island. And we're saying, no, that should be given back to us. So, like the brother said, that the roots, the tree that came from the prophecy, I want to be a branch. I want to be a branch of that for the California Indians up north, for AIM. I want to be that warrior that you guys inspired me to be. I have a young brother over here singing, a little nephew. He's a voice. He's that 7th generation. He's coming up. And he has that spirit to carry on that I had when I was a young man. And it's ongoing. Our little babies that are here, the little girls that are dancing and stuff. All these things that we have to continue on. Don't stop. forever on my mother's side and my father's side, that we show honor to them, to say, without you, we would not be here. You are that branch. You gave me life, and I'll forever give my honor to you. And that's the respect that I ask all my brothers here. Young men, elder men, respect the women of the world. They are the mothers. They are the givers of life. Don't ever forget that. I thank you for the time. Again.
Thank you. Bravo.
Thank you, Doug. And so, so I just want, I want to let everyone know that, you know, we're not going to stop fighting the corruption, and we're going to keep working with Jim and Tony, and we want to thank them, you know, and we'll continue. And thank you.
Thank you. Bravo. Woo.
I'd like to close this part of our press gathering here with Tonio Gonzalez, the director of the American Indian Movement AIM West organization that has been organizing the conference here this past week and the next day's activities. Oh, Tony.
Yeah.
And maybe you can cover some of the issues that you covered.
All right. Tony.
Thank you very much, Jimbo, and for your moderating the press conference. This does conclude this press conference. I'd like to thank KPFA Radio Pacifica and also local San Francisco channel KPOO for making this possible.